Hi, good morning, good evening to everyone who's joined this session. And today we kick off our SAP IBP training. My name is Vijay, and I will be walking you through next various hours of training on SAP IBP. It's the latest tool for supply chain planning from SAP, stands for Integrated Business Planning. Today's agenda will be focusing on the business process that this tool is used for. Uh, it is the sales and operations planning process, the SNOP process. So we will look at that a little bit and understand where and how the tool fits and why some of the organizations are going with this tool. What are the business problems or process enablement that this tool can provide. Before we go any further, let me give you a brief look into the course contents that we will be covering as part of this training. So like I said, today is our first day, first session. We will be covering the section around SAP IBP solution introduction as well as the process introduction. Next sessions, we will start looking more on the SAP IBP user interface, which is an Excel, which is very good when it comes for business users and planning purposes, because most of the organizations, they are very comfortable with a spreadsheet solution like Excel. So you see these next four topics are around those lines. We will then look at configuration, which is the backend configuration of IBP to enable business users to use this tool for the purposes it is meant for. So we'll look at various topics around configuration, how to configure a particular planning view, a particular master data set to enable the business process. We will also look at various planning operators, versions, and I will talk in detail today on the requirement for versions and scenarios and why it is needed. And you will understand why this tool is so good. So versions and scenarios is a key unique differentiator of this product. It's very important and we will spend good amount of time today understanding what and why version or scenarios are required. And then as we go ahead in our sessions, we will look at systemic configuration around versions and scenarios and a demo of the same. We will look at planning operator configuration from a standpoint of configuring profiles as well as debugging those profiles with around statistical forecasting and supply planning. We'll also look at a lot of analytics and dashboarding capabilities and user integration. So these are uh, a high level introduction into the topics that you can expect as part of this training. And this training helps you become empowered with SAP IBP, because all of these features we will cover as IBP platform features and not into any specific or nitty-gritties of a module, so that regardless of any module of IBP that you work with, you will be able to easily grasp, understand, and configure the solution, regardless of any module that you work with. Okay, let me go back to my presentation. So let's kick off. Introduction to SNOP process. So let's understand what is an SNOP process. An SNOP process, by definition, for some of those who like formal definitions, is defined as a formal process led by a business team occurring on a monthly basis to evaluate aggregate plans for time-phased projections for your product, demand, supply, and also integrated with financials for a horizon of next 18 to 24 months. So essentially, it's a decision enabling process where you would like to see an alignment between your demand and supply. A typical SNOP process can be a 5-step or a 4-step process, but the output of those 4 steps is essentially an understanding between various functions of an organization. Uh, Demand is managed by a different function, supply, inventory, capacity, all those areas are managed by a different function, most cases production team. And so it's important that these two teams talk to each other closely so that they understand what is what is that they need to produce, and also align it with what is that they are producing on the shop floor. That is one aspect of SNOP process of demand and supply match. And like I said, it's a 4-step process occurring every month where the teams look in the future horizon of 18 to 24 months. It involves various teams participation. Two teams I mentioned, demand team and production team. Many a times there is an SNOP champion who kind of orchestrates the entire process. And this entire process involves good involvement of senior leadership and executive team, so that you do not only match your demand and supply, you also look, when you're looking at 18 to 24 months, are also aligning the demand and supply with your strategic goals, so that your strategic goals of what executive team is thinking are in sync with as a tactical plan for next 5 6 months the operations team is thinking, and which in turn is synced with the day-to-day operations that are happening on the shop floor, what the production manager or a team leader on the shop floor, the activities that they're doing. All of these three need to be in sync for an organization to meet its goal, for an organization to have a good, effective plan and an effective execution, leading into an efficient planning process. So you will have good levels of inventory, not too high, not too low. You will be able to meet your customer service levels. You would be able to meet your on time delivery targets. You would be able to meet your quality inspections. And not only this, you will also be able to align your revenue numbers, which your finance team and financial people are always interested in. So this is setting a brief context around what SNOP is essentially. Now let's look at why it is needed or where it fits. So SNOP, like in this slide, it fits directly between your long-term high-level planning, which your strategy team management board does, which goes beyond an year very easily and it spreads across next 5 years or so. That business strategy, along with your short-term tactics of 6 months to less than an year, again, and that translation into detailed execution. So SNOP is that bridge between that long-term planning and short-term tactics. It's that bridge which aligns them and keeps them in balance and keeps them talking. Otherwise, I've seen various companies where there is no SNOP process. Strategy team keeps thinking on some other tangent, whereas whatever is happening on day-to-day activities on the shop floor are totally different. They have their own challenges. The environments are totally different. The input factors are totally different. So that's why these two teams, it's very difficult that they will be on the same page at any point in time. And that is the main purpose of SNOP, to bring the executive team in alignment with the short term tactics. And as we will go further, you will understand that SNOP process is not a very complicated process. Like I explained, it's a very simple process, happens monthly, involves different teams. They come together and discuss the demand and supply numbers, align it with the strategic goals, align it with the financials, and so that in case of there are any conflicts, if there are any big gaps, you can quickly identify it, and the two teams or the various teams involved can resolve between them. So this is a typical SNOP process. Like I explained earlier, it's a four-step process. The first step in the monthly cycle starts with demand team. They build a consensus demand planning process, the output of which is consensus demand. It will involve inputs from sales, marketing, finance, and all the relevant teams who have knowledge of various demand signals, along with demand planners who may generate statistical forecast. All of those demand signals come together as a consensus demand, which is the one final number from the demand team which they think is important in terms of what they can sell in the market, what is the true demand of the product. This number gets percolated down to the supply team. Once that phase of SNOP process is complete, supply team looks at those numbers, looks at the updated demand plan, maps it and puts it in their views and spreadsheets to understand whether the organization can meet this demand with the given capacity, given resources, other material constraints. There may be some monthly shutdowns planned the next month. There may be other factors impacting how much you can produce. So, on one aspect, you look at the numbers that you can sell, then supply team looks at that and tells you how much you can produce out of that. And more often than not, there will be a gap. So the third step is to balance that, minimize that gap, make sure that whatever is the demand, you are able to meet it, because you don't want your customers to go to some other company and buy their product because your product was not available. You always want to meet your demand, and you do not want that supply is more than demand. There may be situations for some products, some product groups where there is too much inventory already lying and the product is not getting bought. There is less demand, it's declining, people don't like that product now. You don't want that situation either. So the best is where the ideal scenario of demand and supply matching. And that is the purpose of step 3, where you review these gaps. Demand and supply teams between themselves try to resolve it. If demand team can lower forecast or supply team can improve or increase their production plan, and they create different scenarios. So that is, here is the aspect of versions and scenarios that becomes critical. You have two different teams who have looked at the numbers independently, and now you want them to come on the same page, which is where scenario creation is very important. And when I say scenario creation, it means practically what if analysis. For example, the demand team may pose a question to supply asking, what if I introduce a new product tomorrow? What if I get 3 new customers? Will you be able to meet my demand? On the other hand, supply team may be asking questions like, what if I reduce one shift in my production line? What if tomorrow we have a shutdown? What if tomorrow my inventory is low? I'm not able to meet my inventory target. What if there is a quality inspection and our products are not good? All those things are scenarios that you should plan for ahead rather than waiting for them to happen. So this is where scenario planning or what if simulations are critical in any SNOP process. For any SNOP tool to work well, for any SNOP process to work effectively, you need to have good capability to run and create scenarios. And once you create scenarios, to compare them and to identify which is better, whether getting 3 new customers is better for my revenue or introducing a new product is better for my revenue. Whatever is the best decision for the organization aligned with the strategic goals, whatever helps you meet your revenue goals, that is what option out of various scenarios the team select and go ahead. Many times they may not come on a consensus and they may not make a decision as to what scenario is better, because there may be cases where some scenarios have cost implications, some scenarios have implications for sales team in terms of customer delivery, right? Those are the points where both teams may not agree to any single number, and that's where you take those specific cases for an executive review, so that they can also look at what planning has been done, what are the outstanding issues, what are the gaps that they can provide inputs on, or if they have to provide any approvals for any changes or any specific scenario, they can do that. This way, the executive team is informed and they are able to align the plans that is happening on the ground with their strategic goals. They may provide some inputs also as part of this process step. Executive review is essentially a quick meeting which not lasts more than 2 hours with the executives, where the teams present the demand supply situation in a very user friendly format and take inputs from executive team and finalize the plan. So these are four standard steps. Each organization may have a little bit of variation of these processes, or by the scope of their process implementation. If they are spread across geographies, they may do it by geography or business unit, and then maybe do a global SNOP process. So there can be variations, but wherever you have any situation of a company selling any product or service, and they want to match it against a constrained demand, a constrained supply situation, you need SNOP process, and it's very helpful and effective in improving your KPIs. So SAP has given this maturity model of any organization who are doing an SNOP process, at what level of maturity they are. You can be on a low level of maturity with on a reacting basis to a number 4 with orchestrating level. In simple terms, the difference is, if you are a level 1 SNOP process, you essentially may not have any standard tool to work with IBP or to work with your SNOP process, and you may have huge time spent just on data collation, managing inputs and outputs, and a lot of effort just spent on non-value added activities. When you move to levels 2 and 3, you start doing the balancing step very well, with little with capability around simulation, with real-time planning, with collaboration with various users, with workflows, real-time projections and scenario comparisons. And towards level 4, which is where you involve a broader group, the entire organization. You also collaborate with the finance team, so that your financial planning is also integrated with your demand and supply match process, and you have a very close tab and very effective way to understand your gross margins and supply and profit margin. SAP IBP as a product, as a solution, is able to meet your organization needs, whether you are on level 1 or level 4. SAP IBP is a good fit for you. It can take you from level 1 to level 3 or 4 also. So what are some of the process challenges that organizations face? And this is important to understand, so that we can get an appreciation of the kind of system or technology or tools required to meet this, to fulfill this gap. So according to a Gartner report, 70% of organizations are in stage 1 or 2 of their SNOP maturity model, and they have not been able to improve or move to the next level, primarily because challenges around misalignment in their planning process, in the way they set up the 4-step process, in the way the teams have been structured, the people involvement. Or B, it can be because it's many a times SNOP process is thought of as a supply chain function process. It is not looked as an enterprise wide initiative, which doesn't the bad part is there may not be executive involvement, there may not be some functional involvement from important teams like sales and marketing. Third is just strong planning, just some plain bad plans created which have gross inaccuracies, be it in terms of data, be it in terms of algorithms that have been used to create the forecast. There may be um, just because of maybe technology or time constraints, the quality of plans generated is not good. Fourth is, even though you may be generating a good quality plan, but if it is not easily available for the users that will make a decision out of it, if it is not easily readable, if it is not easily understandable to understand the matrix coming out of that data, the information coming out of that data, then also SNOP process will not be effective. And last but not the least, it's very important point which many organizations fail to consider is master data management. If you have bad master data management practices, poor governance around master data, any process that you set up will not remain good for a long period of time. You will start facing difficulties as your master data increases, as you get more requests. So it's very important to set a good cadence around master data. So now you understand what could be typical challenges of implementing an SNOP process. Now let's move into section B of my presentation today on the technology side or the tool, SAP IBP. So SAP IBP, I told you this is a tool that will help you enable the SNOP process that we just discussed. It will help remove all the issues and problems that we just saw and give an effective platform for generating an SNOP plan for all the teams across your organization. As you can see from this slide, it's a very standard slide on IBP. It tells that IBP is made of 5 different modules. It is not a single application, it is a collection of 5 different modules, each module having their own specific function. Having said that, all of these modules or any application in SAP IBP, there are some platform features. Some 2 important platform features are, it is a cloud-based solution which is enabled by SAP HANA database. So any and all applications and modules of SAP IBP are cloud-based. They work out of SAP HANA database. And second is, all of these modules, the front end is an Excel file supported by dashboarding and analytics capabilities on web UI. All of them have the same structure. You do not need a VPN connection to work with IBP. You just need a simple internet connectivity, a browser with your URL link to work with, or an Excel file with your admin installed, and you can just get started anywhere, anytime with IBP. Let me spend a few minutes just describing each of these modules. The first is sales and operations planning, which is a very specific module around the process structure that we just discussed, around what if supply planning, what if demand planning. So across the board, what if scenarios, there is embedded collaboration capabilities. Supply chain control tower is intended to enable your visibility into your supply chain so that you are monitoring the right KPIs, the right dashboards across your supply chain, and which you roll up into your organization wide KPIs. So you know your supply chain in and out with supply chain control tower, the KPIs that this module provide. There are other capabilities around case management, which you can use to identify any specific group of tasks and group of issues which need to be referred to a particular function, a particular user group, etc. So that the focus is you should have visibility into supply chain, into what is happening in various sections of your supply chain. Module 3, 4, and 5 are specific modules to create the plan. So the And as you can understand from the name, third module, inventory, has a very sophisticated multi-echelon inventory optimization technique to understand what should be your right safety stock levels for any organizations, no matter how big it is, how many business units are there, how many levels of products are there. This module will tell you the right levels of your finished good inventory, your work in progress inventory, your raw material inventory across different locations, so that you meet your customer service levels with the most optimized inventories. The module on demand has statistical modeling capabilities for generating a statistical forecast, as well as advanced capabilities around demand sensing, which is used to generate a mid-term or short-term forecast, I would say. This essentially helps the demand planning team to generate a good and effective plan. Supply and response module is focused more around looking at the final demand and understanding whether you can meet that demand with your given constraints. So the supply and response module has two very good engines: a heuristic engine for generating an unconstrained plan, where you can see and understand where are the overloads in your network or in your product line. And second is an profit optimized algorithm, which will give you always a feasible plan, maximizing your profits and minimizing the costs for you. It will do automatically. And like I said, all of these modules have the front end as an Excel file. So it's very easy for any business planner to evaluate the output of any of these modules. And we will go through the training. You will understand and you will appreciate how good the tool is and how easy it is to work with it. Supply and response module has another element to it of response planning. So on day to day, each organization keep receiving new sales orders, new customer orders, and they want to understand how do they fulfill those orders in the best time? How do they respond to those orders? And that is where the module supply and response comes into play with the aspect of response planning. Now that you have a basic understanding of what SAP IBP is, what are the different modules, I wanted to bring up this slide to focus on the fact that SAP IBP as a product, you can use it for your short-term planning needs, where you may want to do a day-to-day forecast rerun for short-term using demand sensing, or like we were discussing, response planning, day-to-day order confirmations. Or you may move across the axis from short term to tactical planning to the long term planning, where you may do it less frequently, but you are looking at a longer horizon. You are looking to answer questions like, do I need more capacity? Do I need to build a new factory? What is my network design looking like? How do I structure my organization 5 years down the line? And questions like those. So IBP can be used both to answer questions around short-term planning as well as long-term. One slide on the user experience. I told earlier that SAP IBP, the front end is an Excel file, which makes it very, very easy for business planners to work with, and also to migrate from their existing spreadsheets to a technology or an enterprise solution like IBP. So the change management is very good, easy, and very, we have noticed the user adoption with SAP IBP is very high. Apart from that, there is a web UI for real-time monitoring into the dashboards. There is integrated processes around demand, supply, finance, etc., that come as part of IBP, and there are advanced algorithms that help generate those plans. The data model is flexible and it's a unified data model. So if I change something in my demand function, the changes are seamlessly also visible on the supply side. I do not need to do any staging. I do not need to do any migration, any releases from, let's say, from demand to supply planning. So it's very good. And as I explained that the front end is Excel, so though there comes a set of pre-built templates once you sign up for IBP, but you can always use your existing Excel files, whatever templates that you have built, and quickly recreate it in IBP. So that is where the flexibility with templates and working with Excel is very good. There is an aspect of IBP which is SAP Jam, which is used for social collaboration. Think of it as social media for the enterprise, something like Facebook for the enterprise, where they can share tasks, share a status update on the activity, tag other people, take their comments, assign activity to them, review progress, all of that very seamlessly, so that the communication within the organization is very open, very fair, very quick. And last but not the least, the web UI, the backend is based on the award-winning user experience from SAP Fiori. It's all app-based, very easy to navigate, very easy to work with, and it's uh, very quick given that it is all based on SAP HANA. All of this help to make sure that users are empowered. User ownership is very high with this tool, and user adoption is more. People want to use it. They like it the first time they see it. So it's a pull rather than a push. Many IT projects and many of the supply chain planning solutions fail just because the users do not like using it and they go back to their old ways of working. And that is where IBP, with the similar interface that users are already working with, stands a good chance that users migrate to it, use it, and change their business practices, change their planning practices for good. Excel, I will go into details of this in the next section, but just for this today's session, understand that there will be a one-time activity required for IBP when you install an IBP add-in. And once you install that, like I said, it's a one-time activity. An IBP ribbon becomes available in your Excel, and you can do almost everything required to do for a business planning perspective from that Excel. I would say more than 90 to 95% of activities you can do directly from your Excel. So you don't need to go to out any other module, any other place, wait for any staging information, depend on IT for running any planning jobs and stuff like that. It is very high ownership from business and very easy to work with. Now that we have looked at IBP, let's look at some of the key capabilities that you would think of from and expect from an SNOP tool, a tool that is supposed to enable an SNOP process. First and most important, I said, was it should have the capability to enable that step 3, which is what if scenario management, what if simulation, create different scenarios, compare them, and do that quickly. And this is a tick for SAP IBP. IBP has very good capabilities around it. Second, master data management. The tool should provide capability to easily manage all the master data, as well as, when I say manage, the master data in the tool needs to come from some other source systems. So it should be able to talk to other source systems very easily with the interfaces, and which are quick, and there are no backlogs, there are no failures, there is no delay. That will be considered as good and quality master data management. And this again is a tick for SAP IBP, and we will go into details on how SAP talks to any SAP non-SAP system, and it's very seamless. Third point, integration into operational planning. Once you create a plan, it should be always operationalized, which essentially means the output from SAP IBP should go into your system of record, system of execution, which are used on the shop floor. Again, IBP, it's a tick. It can easily talk to your core ERP systems and pass on the results to the core ERP systems for execution. Number four, visibility into financial plans. Now, IBP with its flexibility around templates and around users who can use the tool, uh, it is very easy for financial team also to come and participate as part of SNOP meetings and have their own templates defined around revenue comparisons, around annual budgeting processes, which are in sync with the demand and supply planning. So, like I said, this again will be a take for IBP. Next one is very important, multi-level and multi-dimensional hierarchies. Now, with big organizations which work into thousands of products, each product may fall into different product families, which may aggregate into different product groups, which aggregate into different product series, and then finally into business units or solution lines. So it's at various levels that the planning can happen, and this is just one example for products. Same way your customers will be organized by your regions, then by geographies, continents, business units. There will be multi levels on those dimensions also. So there are multiple dimensions, each dimension having multiple levels, which essentially means the data can be huge data. And when the data is huge, you want to understand where that information lies, so you may need to plan at any level, any dimension quickly. That is where it is very important for any SNOP technology that it should be quickly and seamlessly able to work with multi-level and multi-dimensional data. Again, it's tick for SAP IBP, just because the way IBP is designed, and we will go through details in our configuration training session, we will appreciate how quickly you can create a new level, you can create a new dimension, and start populating that data. Some of the other tools, such small change may require a huge development effort and a huge restructuring of the way the code is written at the backend. SAP IBP does not restrict you in that manner. They have written a base structure which is flexible enough and gives various capabilities in the hands of business users to define how they want to use that. So it's very quick and easy to change in case tomorrow there is a process change and you want to look at some other dimension, you can do that quickly. The next two are around assumptions management and managing your process workflows, which are essentially enable the softer, intangible part of any SNOP process to understand what the people are thinking, why they have made any change, to understand and document their assumptions, track it, as well as understand whether people are doing the activities assigned to them in the timely manner or not. Because there may be different teams involved and it may become a bigger group in no time. So managing the process, managing the workflows, the tasks, the critical activities, the stage gates for that process is very important. IBP has the capability to do both of these, and we will see during our training. Last but not the least is the performance management. So the tool should always give you, we discussed about supply chain visibility. The tool should always give you capability to monitor your matrix, define your matrix, look at by function, by organization level, by customers level, at any level. You need to look at a capability to have a close tab on your performance and monitor it so that you can make progress on it. So a typical four-step process that we discussed, starting with demand review. The output of that is the consensus demand, which goes into supply review step, where supply team. The output of that is constrained demand, which is compared to consensus or unconstrained demand, is constrained by how much you can produce, by your capacity, by your resources, by the material availability. So that constrained plan then goes for balancing in the pre-SNOP meeting, and finally for final approval and decisions to the executive SNOP meeting. The output of that is the final consensus demand, which is locked in, and execution team picks it and start using it. Below on the slide, you see some of the screenshots on of the tool of various section. Like I said, it has an Excel interface. It has a web interface where you have capabilities around dashboarding and a lot of other uh, applications. You can always see various alerts, so you may understand that if you are trying to balance demand and supply, one of the critical capabilities will be alerting business users that okay, this rule has been violated, there is this constraint, you are getting negative on your projected stock and stuff like that. Those are the alerts, and those IBP provides both in web UI as well as in Excel. You can configure them. And the fourth is workflow, which we just discussed around process management, that it gives you capability to track different process steps. And in the screenshot, we're saying that the step one or step zero of updating the data is complete, and demand planning step is yet to start with the dates, and there are further details below it on who is assigned the task and the activities. So to summarize, IBP delivers cross-departmental planning to balance the demand and supply with capabilities around what-if simulations. This is just a quick screenshot on demand planning and Excel layout with the design is on the top. You have some charting capabilities, and on the lower section, this particular screenshot is showing you that for a particular customer ID belonging to a particular customer group and a product, what are my forecast numbers across the year. And then you can have similar views like this for demand team, for sales and marketing, for getting sales managers inputs and stuff like that. Similarly, once you have the demand plan, you will have a kind of a report on the Excel, or we call an IBP planning view, for supply planning to understand whether there is available resources, whether there is any kind of capacity overloads happening. In the screenshot, you're seeing for one particular resource across 3 lines, if there is any overload that is happening, where my required capacity or capacity demand goes above my available capacity. Based on the reports or planning views the two teams use to generate their plans and understand, create their scenarios, you will start creating the what if simulations. You will start creating more scenarios to understand, what if I increase my demand team in their view increases their demand by 10%. Would there be any constraints still, or you may still be able to meet your demand without any capacity overloads, right? So that is where you start creating multiple plans. So, okay, I ramp up 5% 1 month, 8% second month, 10% third month. What if I change the sequence? So you start creating multiple plans and multiple levels. You make changes. You can make multiple changes in the same plan, create it as a scenario, and then compare it with the plan B, which can be a totally different assumptions and totally different kind of numbers. Web UI, which a very detailed and comprehensive dashboarding capability. Like you can see in this slide, there are different chart types starting from pie, bar, column, line, double axis. All that good functionality of charting is available on Web UI, and we'll cover this also as part of our training. So I am towards the end of my session today. Before we close our session, I would just quickly like to introduce in IBP, what is IBP in terms of system, and then that sets our stage for the next session. So IBP in the front end is an Excel file. So like you see, I got a warning message that I've been logged out because it was idle for a long time. But if you see my Excel file, I have an IBP ribbon and I have a log on button. I can click on it and get into the system, right? So it's just over the internet. I do not need any VPN. I do need to install this IBP one time, and we'll discuss some aspects about it in the next section. Once I log in, all of these different sections become available quickly. Just to introduce, so you can see a section around master data. You can manage your master data directly from Excel. You see a section around alerts. You see a section around inputs where you can save your data, and you see a section around advanced. This advanced section is where you have all the sophisticated algorithms that I've been talking in my presentation around profit optimization, inventory optimization, statistical forecasting, demand sensing. All of that you can run directly from your Excel once you log in. Another interface is the web interface, and like you see, it's again on a URL in a browser. I've opened it. I've created my home page, and all of these apps are Fury based apps. I can drag and drop them, move them around, and organize it the way I want it. There are different sections for different roles. So the web right now I see everything because I logged in as an administrator, but as a business user, this will be restricted based on the role. So a demand planner sees only apps relevant for demand planning for statistical forecasting, whereas a supply planner sees app only relevant for supply planning, so that it's not very confusing for the business user. So it's very easy to navigate, a very simple layout determined by what role you are playing in the organization. And it also provides capability around dashboards and configuration. All the configuration happens from the web UI, and we will go into detail in of that in our configuration session. So that is all for today. Thanks for joining the session. I hope you liked the session, and you have a good understanding now of what IBP is, and you're ready for the next sections. So thank you for today, and see you in the next session. Thank you.